The musical episode. The one episode in a long-running series where the characters randomly start singing. This bizarre phenomenon has become somewhat of a go-to format for any series that is stuck in a rut and is desperately trying to shake things up. Over the years, the response to these episodes have been very mixed, as even though it is a fun premise, a lot of the time the writers don't entirely grasp how to shine in this new medium. Despite this, the musical episode era seems to be far from over. If anything, its success stories actually paved the way for entire musical series, the most famous one obviously being Glee, unfortunately. And although I would love to geek out over musical shows such as Smash or Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, that's not why we all gathered here today. We can talk about that in a future video. Subscribe. No. Today we are going to talk about the weird theater cousin at the family dinner table of episodes. Famous examples of this trend are My Musical from Scrubs, Song Beneath the Song from Grey's Anatomy, a whole slew of musical episodes in Riverdale, and of course the Holy Grail, Once More with Feeling from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The Season 6 Episode 7 musical really sets itself apart from its peers by actually propelling the story forwards in a lot of ways, instead of just being this gimmicky throwaway episode. That and the songs really slap. Like honestly, after rewatching the episode for this video, the urge to put something to sing about in my audition rep has been insurmountable. I think I was in heaven. Those time signature changes though. I think any audition pianist will murder you if you bring this in. Anyway, why did this episode go on to receive so much critical acclaim? What was it exactly that series creator Joss Whedon injected into this trope to bring it back from the grave? Let's discuss. A make or break factor that will pretty much decide the fate of the musical episode is the integration of songs. Seeing your favorite characters suddenly break out into song after seasons of just talking can be quite jarring. It is therefore paramount to make this sudden transformation palatable by placing it in the right context. A quite straightforward story device to accommodate this is to simply have your characters put on a musical. Like how in Schitt's Creek, Maura puts together a performance of Cabaret. Not very imaginative, but let's be honest, some stories lend themselves better to a creative twist than others. Schitt's Creek is very much rooted in reality. It would be extremely bizarre if, say, a fictive disease made everyone sing. Whereas in Scrubs, a series known for its surreal vignettes, a medical disorder is exactly how they framed their musical episode. Buffy lucks out quite a lot here as the story takes place in the supernatural, so you can kind of just go anywhere with it. The writers decided on a demon that puts a spell on everyone, which makes them sing and dance. Having the characters unwillingly open up about their deepest fears allows for a wide range of genres, as each song is uniquely tied to the individual. All of the songs exist in their own universes, placing the focus more on character development, which, because of the premise of the episode, is actually synonymous with pushing the story forwards. Everyone disclosing their most inner thoughts actually leads us to the 11 o'clock number, where Buffy reveals that she was in heaven. But the writers take it even a step further by also incorporating the tone of voice of the series into the songs. All throughout the seasons of Buffy, the characters self-consciously address their own dialogue and actions. Having the characters address the fact that they are now singing and dancing against their will helps ease the audience into this new setup. On top of that, the characters also break the fourth wall a couple of times. And this helps closing the gap between performance and audience even more. Seamlessly integrating the music into the narrative is very important, but the next step to greatness is to make the songs actually good. What is incredibly remarkable about Buffy's musical episode is that series creator Joss Whedon wrote the music without having any prior experience writing music. I'm sorry, what? Someone who has never written music before somehow manages to make reprises of 2 different songs come together? I don't know if I entirely believe that, if I'm honest. Regular composer for the series Christopher Beck is accredited for the overture and Dawn's ballet, but it wouldn't surprise me if perhaps he helped out Joss a little bit more than that. However, the actor who portrays Spike, James Masters, theorizes that Whedon's inexperience is exactly the reason why he achieved to write such complex music. Because of his lack of training, he breaks the rules without even knowing it. Although Whedon never had any formal training, it didn't surprise me at all whilst I was doing my research, aka reading the extensive Wikipedia page on this episode, that Whedon is a big Sondheim fan. Like I discussed in my pipeline video, a reoccurring element of these I've never written a musical before but I just happen to nail them stories is a prior love for musical theater, or at least a lot of exposure to the medium. Yes, musical theater is a medium, not a genre, but I discussed this at length as well in the same video. So even though technically Joss Whedon has never taken a musical lesson in his life, subconsciously he has picked up on what to implement into his music to make it a great musical. Number one being story development. Like I mentioned before, because of the premise of the episode being a curse that makes everyone sing about their deepest feelings, the songs not only serve the purpose of character development, but also push the story forwards at the same time. The more I think about it, honestly, this premise is just absolutely genius. It perfectly accommodates the fact that the singing is an anomaly in the Buffyverse. It naturally hits the mark on character and story development. It even explains why the characters aren't amazing singers. Just so clever. But so anyway, being a bit of a musical theater fiend, Whedon also naturally incorporated number 2 of what elevates the soundtrack of a musical, giving reprises a different meaning. Tara singing Under Your Spell as an ode to Willow to then subvert the sentiment in the reprise when she discovers Willow put an enchantment on her is heartbreaking. And then to combine that with the reprise of Giles' song because he's also contemplating of leaving someone, there's too many layers. The third trait of a good soundtrack that Whedon naturally infused into his work is strong lyrics. Not surprising, of course, seeing he cited Sondheim as one of his biggest inspirations. The first lyrics of the episode, actually, are the perfect example of Sondheim's typical use of double meanings. Every single night, the same arrangement. At first sight, the word arrangement in this context means setup. Every night she goes out and does the same thing, slaying those pesky vampires. But because this is the musical episode, it is quite fun to use a word that has a different meaning in the music world. An arrangement is a musical adaptation of an existing composition. So kind of like how Once More with Feeling is a musical adaptation of the existing composition that is a regular Buffy episode. Whoa. From the first line, the tone is set. This episode is gonna be different. Again, so clever. In Xander and Anya's song, I'll Never Tell, we get the lyrics, "You're the cutest of the Scoobies, with your lips as red as rubies, and you're firm yet supple, tight embrace." And any Sondheim fan can tell you that he is definitely no stranger to his sexual innuendo. The lyric, "Don't ask me how at my age one still can grow, if you met my wife you'd know," from A Little Night Music is only one of the many examples. If one of Sondheim's characters would have had their pussy eaten, I'm sure he would have written the lyric, "You make me come, pleat." Despite the characters addressing the fact that it is strange that they are singing and dancing, no one ever speaks negatively about it. If anything, the overall attitude of the episode towards the musical theater legacy is one of admiration. It's almost like they're making sure not to break any of the rules of the art form. A musical episode without a big group song and dance number would be blasphemy. And so despite the fact that none of our characters' songs fit that big ensemble vibe, Whedon made sure to add it in at the start to communicate that the whole town is affected by this curse.
They got the mustard. They got the mustard.
It's only one line, but my god, I love it. Especially in contrast with Buffy's dry response.
It's not just us.
What can I say? It works! Another classic musical theater must is a tap dance. Here, the suave attitude that is usually associated with this dance genre gets turned on its head by having someone tap dance until they burst into flames. Fun? And our demon also gets a moment to impress us with his clickety-clackities. Xander and Anya's duet, I'll Never Tell, is an obvious homage to Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers comedies. But another little wink that perhaps slipped under the radar a bit is the little mermaid moment at the end of Buffy's first song. This type of content can only be created if it's built on admiration. And fun! Which just so happens to bring me to my next point. Apparently Joss Whedon ever since the beginning of the series wanted to write a musical episode, but never got enough time off of work. Only when the Buffy team got a 6-month break after season 5 did Whedon finally get the chance to entertain this endeavor. And that build-up anticipation sizzles all throughout the episode. The script is jam-packed with these little gags, like it's like the creative team just couldn't help themselves. Demon dying mid-singing his line, the fire truck passing in the background while they sing the word burn, Anya's bunny escape, the entire street scene with the parking ticket. I could go on and on. I said it before in my Legally Blonde video and I will say it again. The key to a successful adaptation is a love for the source material, or in this case for the medium. Yes, medium. They knew they were only gonna get one chance at this, and so they grabbed it with both their hands. And not to get all sobby about it, but musical theater doesn't have the best reputation anymore. Like, it's definitely not the cool kid in the entertainment industry. And so it always fills me with a bit of dread when big budget projects with major reach suddenly decide to dip their toe in the musical theater pond. Because a lot of the time the creative teams behind these projects haven't got the slightest clue on how to execute a musical. They completely underestimate it and then end up producing a lukewarm product at best, which reinforces this annoying idea that musicals aren't that good. So to see a franchise with a massive following put so much effort towards their musical venture is honestly amazing. Look, there's a reason why as a child the only Buffy episode I had recorded on VCR, yes, I am that old, was Once More with Feeling. It seamlessly transitions into a musical context, perfectly strikes the balance between music and dialogue, and amidst all the humor still manages to convey a very striking message. The pain you feel, you can only heal by living. That Sondheim influence still ever so present. I genuinely think the level of this episode supersedes some of the shows currently playing in the West End. To think this was Whedon's first attempt, actually insane. He needs to write more. The world needs more Joss Whedon musicals. Right, so let's finally address the giant elephant in the room here. I obviously didn't do enough research before filming this, as I wasn't really aware of Joss Whedon's problematic reputation, hence why I speak so highly of him in this vid. I, however, decided to keep editing and eventually post this video because I do think that objectively the episode is very well written. Like, it's interesting to pick apart and analyze why it works well. The fact that it is the brainchild of an alleged abuser, however, does recontextualize it a bit for me. I guess it just depends on where you stand on the whole separating art from the artist debate. But still, I felt like it was alright to post this video and to essentially spread praise for this episode. But what I didn't feel comfortable with is to advocate for more Joss Whedon musicals. Despite his clear natural ability with the craft, I'd prefer him to stay away from my community. We endure so much toxicity already in the musical theater industry, like, we're good. There's a whole lot of other very talented musical theater writers out there. Give them the opportunities. Let's all keep looking out for each other. Does the episode not have any flaws at all? Well, no, of course it does. I'm, for example, not a big fan of the twist that Xander was the one to put out the charmed necklace. Feels like an easy way out, like it didn't make that much sense, I thought. Giles' song Standing perhaps also veers on the boring side for me. But overall, I think it's very clear why this episode consistently ranks at the top of any musical episode comparison list. It truly is a work of art, and its success helped open doors to entire musical TV series. The influence it had on the musical episode as a format is undeniable. And the influence it had on Little Anne is perhaps also not that hard to find. I mean, I do have a bachelor, a master's, and a YouTube channel about musical theater. But okay, maybe the reason why this episode resonated so much with me is because I've always loved singing, dancing, and theater. It's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, you know? Did I like the episode because I like musical theater, or do I like musical theater because I like the episode? We'll never know. But it does mean that it was an absolute pleasure rewatching this episode and to relive my beloved childhood memories of me and my sister scream singing, "What's with all the carrots?" As always, I would love to hear your thoughts. Did you love? Did you hate? Did I forget to mention something super important? Which musical episode should I perhaps discuss next? If you like video essays about musical theater, I have a whole playlist where I compare musical adaptations to their original films, so that might be something that you enjoy. And that's it, I think. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye!